Hello everybody, Abed's brother here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the performance of some old PCs playing Dishonored. Dishonored was developed by Arcane Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. It was released on PC on October 2nd, 2012. It uses the Unreal 3 engine and the DirectX 9 API. And you should be seeing the minimum and recommended specifications from the Steam Store page on screen now. Dishonored is a very easy to run game. It's one of those things that should run on anything, so I'm expecting good results in this video. First up, we're going to be testing on the A107870K with the Firepro W5100. And we are at 1080p, 1080p, and max settings. There aren't a lot of settings here. FX-AA is the highest anti-aliasing option available. And this, in the game, this is from, I think it's the 5th level, the party at the Boyle Estate. And I chose this level for benchmarking primarily because of the very long draw distances. But even for a game from 2012, this looks really, really good. Now you can see the W5100. We haven't dropped under 60 yet, and again, this is max settings. And the A107870K's CPU is between 60 and 70%, so it's handling the load without much trouble here. A bigger question will be when we get inside the Boyle Estate, inside where the party is, and we're going to have more NPCs on screen.
So she stopped singing as they passed,
But right now, we just have a little bit on the outside. We're looking at the canal, and they're turning around. We're looking at the two chatting guards. That's mostly backdrop, and now we're looking at the estate. I generally play this game as a little more slower, a little more stealthy. I like to go through levels completely undetected if possible. I know it is possible to play it as a more action game where you're teleporting everywhere, and that's fun, but you do wind up using up a lot of your whatever that is, lyrium, the blue bar there. That's what helps you teleport. And the big question here is getting inside before the tall boy sees you. What? Oh, I thought I could walk through here. Excuse me. And the tall boy is walking. Okay, we did it. Try to blend in. So you can see when there's when we're mostly facing the backdrop, we're around 100 FPS. When we get some draw distance, we're going to drop. And now, because I'm inside the Boyle Estate, the tall boy does not care.
Invitation.
Yeah, so we're at 100. It is 130 FPS cap here in the game. That is not my cap on the game. I run all my tests with a 240 FPS cap, but this game, Dishonored, has 130 FPS cap. That's not a factor in this test on this system, but it will be a factor later. Get the comment from the guard.
Sick
Yeah. Really an incredible amount of visual detail for as old as the game is. I mean, you figure 2012 at the time I'm making this video, that's 14 years ago. We'll take a walk around the garden, which is again taking in the long draw distances on the other side of the fence, because we were sitting on the roof of the building looking this way a moment ago, and now we're in the garden looking the other way, and now we're walking back in. So yeah, this is one of those games that plays on pretty much anything these days, and you can see even with the Athlon 2X4, I think it's Athlon 2X4 chip like the A107870K, we have absolutely no problems. We're a little loaded. I mean, there's 96% CPU load there loading into the new area.
I should have taught him some manners.
Now we have more NPCs on screen, and you can see we went up a bit. But we're still over 60.
Did you hear about Mrs. Grimsley? You'll never believe
It's possible if we get into a heavy, I don't even know, heavy combat situation. Maybe there's a lot of effect on screen here. There's a lot of things going on. We got smoke happening overhead. There were lots of animated particles on the floor.
Learn a trade, join the city.
See those like scraps of paper, whatever? They actually are real-time animated. They're not just decoration. They're supposed to fountain out of some of the fixtures there that we walked past, but they didn't this time. And now we turn around for a big long draw distance down the corridor. Mid-70s. So this is very, very good from that PC. For the next up, we're going to go with our 4590 and GTX 670. Now, as expected, we're going to have some CPU bottlenecks. Even though the i5-4590 is a much better CPU than the A10-7870K. What? Get out of here. Is a much better CPU than the A10-7870K. The Nvidia driver is what it is. We're still going to get pretty good performance from this, but yeah, so we're getting about 80 FPS, 70 to 80. But you can see the GTX 670 is only about 60% utilized. It should be far outperforming the W5100. And in Windows, it probably would be. But we're not in Windows, we're in Linux. So in Linux, the GTX 670 and i5-4590 is barely better than an A10-7870K and Firepro W5100. Look at that, it dropped to 63 there. And unfortunately, the truth about Kepler GPUs is that there is no more driver fixing that is going to happen. You know, with a modern GPU, you might think, oh, NVIDIA's could fix it in the next Linux driver. And that's not going to happen with Kepler GPUs. This is running the, I think it's the 470 driver? Yeah, 470.256.02. And that is the final driver for Kepler GPUs. So if you're running a GTX 600 or 700 series, except the GTX 750, 750 Ti, which is Maxwell, but if you're running, you know, GTX 780, 770, 760, those are all Kepler-based, and they're all going to have the same driver drawbacks that the GTX 670 has. It's unfortunate, but there it is. I mean, here we're doing quite well. The frame drop is just crazy bad when we get some draw distance. So yeah, we're still over 60 the entire time. So that is, it's still acceptable. But definitely underperforming. And you can see, even though we're at 130 FPS, the GPU is still at 60-ish% utilization. That makes me think there's some kind of bottleneck. It's either in the driver or in the architecture, or both, which prevents much higher utilization. I saw 72, 73.
Sick bastard.
Another party game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Now on the upside, you know, my GTX 670 is a 4 gig version, but you do not need 4 gigabytes of VRAM for this game. You can see we're using 1 gig. And you saw on the recommended settings, the developer recommended 768 megabytes of VRAM. So this, if you have a standard 2 gig 670, then you should be able to run this game just as well here. 2 gig, really 2 gig card of anything. You could see with some of the Radeon GPUs, we're using a little over 1 gig, so I would recommend 2 gig for this game for sure. 2 gigabytes of VRAM.
Careful. We tried for a peek upstairs. And the man on duty
Now
was
indoors, we are seeing a little bit better FPS, but the i5-4590 is still way more powerful than the A10-7870K, and 4590 is being pushed to 85% utilization right there. That's just crazy to me. I played so many games on this i5-4590 and on Windows, and I never saw it get push this hard until, like, Assassin's Creed Unity came out.
To what? Learn a trade, join the city watch.
Your house built its
Acceptable performance, but from the GTX 670. But this is one of those cases where you would be getting much better performance on Windows.
What most people don't remember is
Now that carries its own set of problems with, you know, trimming Windows down so it runs well on an old GPU, but acceptable performance in GTX 670, but underperforming for sure. But now we have the FX-8320e and the R9 290. So now this is some serious horsepower. The only drawback is going to be the FX-8320e and its CPU architecture possibly bottlenecking the R9 290, because the R9 290 can run Dishonored at the frame rate, at the frame cap of 130 FPS. It can do that all day, and it shouldn't be stressed at all. So I would be disappointed to see any frame dips too far below 130. It should be staying locked at the cap. And why 130 FPS cap? I'm just guessing here, but 2012 for PC gaming, 60 FPS was becoming the norm. And I think ultra high-end systems were gunning for starting to look at 120 Hertz monitors. So they set the frame rate limit to 130. I think you can turn it off in the config files because it's just Unreal 3. Unreal 3, the engine, has a frame rate cap of 300, I think. So it could be possible to turn it off, but I don't know what that would do to animations and game speed and such. Another bonus for Dishonored in an old game like this is that you can see it's only using about 3.5, 3.6 gigabytes of system RAM. Oh, I made it in one jump that time. So Radeon, really probably the better way to go here, at least if you're going with super old GPUs. This is one reason why I have the A10 7870K and W5100 as one of my test systems, because if a game is old like Dishonored and runs really well, you're going to get decent performance out of that system. And even here, with the FX-8320e, you might think, oh, there's no way you're going to be able to play at a high frame rate like this with an FX chip. But the Linux task scheduler really transforms the FX chips into something a little more viable. I want to see what happens when we go through the garden, because then we're going to get that long draw distance, and if we're going to see it drop, that's where we're going to see it. We're going to see it either turning right to go into the gardens, or we're going to see it once we're indoors going down the long hall, the long corridor. Let's see what happens. No, we're holding about steady here. All right. The R9 290 hitting in max utilization sometimes. So this is a good job from the FX CPU here.
The party's indoors this time.
Really coming through well on this one. Now let's see what happens with more NPCs. Yeah, and the VRAM we're using 1.2, so you definitely want, maybe you get by with a 1 gig, 1 gigabytes of VRAM, but I would say a 2 gigabyte of VRAM would probably be a little bit better. Okay, we got a little CPU bottlenecking in here. We're under 130. We're down to, I saw 93. So yeah, still getting a little FX bottlenecking. Not too bad though. But if you're hoping to hold 120 FPS with this CPU, not gonna quite manage it indoors.
Join the city watch.
Your house built its fortune in crisis.
Hold on, I need a cigar.
And down into the 90s again. But that's why I chose this level for testing, because I knew it would expose, you know, as a non-demanding game, I knew that this level would expose some demands that Dishonored places on the test system. And for the final system, we're going to do the i7 4790 and GTX 1066 gigabyte. This one, as you'll see, the R9 290 and the FX CPU were pretty close to hitting the frame rate cap almost the entire time. The 4790 and GTX 1060 just about hold at the frame rate cap. So I don't see the point in testing my Vega system on this because it's probably going to run even better. Vega has a ton more horsepower and the CPU is more powerful. So, you know, if we're already hitting the frame rate cap with the 4790 and 1060, I think that's as far as I need to go. And here we get the long draw distance, 129, 130. Yeah, we're holding pretty good performance here. And the nice thing about the GTX 1060 is that the final driver for it, the 581.119.02, did get quite a few fixes. The underlying desktop underneath the GTX 1060 here is KDE Wayland. And I believe it was the Nvidia 572 driver that had a lot of Wayland improvements, so at least Pascal and Maxwell did get a whole bunch of the Wayland improvements before Nvidia was like, all right, that's enough drivers for that architecture. But if you're hoping for basically a locked 120 FPS, this is a pretty good, should have no trouble with that with this system. And I would say, if you alter it, alter the config file, you should have no trouble with 144. Again, I'm not sure the level of bottlenecking. With the Nvidia driver on Linux, the faster CPU, you're going to be able to get those higher frame rates. And you can see the 1060 is nowhere near being stressed at all. We're running 30 to 40% utilization. So the GTX 1060 has a lot more to give in this game if the frame rate were unlocked. But I run games stock, exactly as they download from Steam, as close as possible. And I don't use custom Proton versions. I know Proton GE might run things a little more smoothly.
Look at that mask.
The only time I run a custom Proton version is on the Kepler GPU, because that's frequently the only way to run games on the Kepler GPU is with Proton Sarek, because Kepler does not support because Proton Sarek takes care of the poor Vulkan support on Kepler architectures. And yep, we're still holding 130. Let's see what happens when we get inside. If the Nvidia
Party's indoors this time.
CPU bottleneck is going to emerge, that's where it's going to emerge. It is once we load all the NPCs.
Careful. We tried for a peek upstairs, and the man on duty is.
Yeah, I saw 92% utilization there. 91.
I'm sure he's just doing his job. A party like this,
Maybe it was just loading everything in, and now we're back up. Yeah, that could be it. And we had a stutter there, too. No, it's probably just loading things in. Now that everything has been mostly loaded in. I'm still seeing occasional stutter here.
You should see this as an opportunity.
It's just a little blip on the frame time graph.
Join the city watch.
That's a little disappointing.
Fortune in crisis.
Hold on, I need a cigar.
Still an incredibly good-looking game for its age, and yeah, we're up around 130 again.
Hello, sir.
What most people don't remember is the rats came a half a year before the excuse me.
And down the corridor, about 127, 130. Yeah, so that is it, folks. Dishonored, an old game that runs well on old systems. Definitely get some of the Nvidia CPU bottlenecks showing up here. But all 4 systems show they're good for at least 60 FPS, and if you are on the FX system with an R9 290 and you can get a little higher overclock than I got, 4.2 gigahertz on an FX chip, I definitely lost the silicon lottery on that chip. If you can get a little bit higher overclock on the FX chip, then you're probably going to hit 130 FPS all the time, just like I did with the i7 4790 and the GTX 1060. But yeah, it's a classic game, definitely one that's worth playing, and it runs great on Linux. That's all I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.